Hey everyone, how you doing? This is Amon Green, Green Bay Packers all-time leader in rushing, and you're watching Packers Total Access Live, your daily source for Packer content. Go Pack, go!
What's up, guys? Welcome into Packers Total Access. My name is Clayton. You can check us out on packernet.com. Find me on Twitter at Packers_access. It is January 26th, and the coaching carousel is in full tilt as there are moves, interviews being made all over the National Football League. Obviously, the Green Bay Packers got their guy in Jonathan Gannon at defensive coordinator, even before Jim Leonhard hit the open market, if you will, to be able to be interviewed in person and potentially for that DC job. I know there's a lot of fans that wanted Jim Leonhard as their top choice. He was definitely one of my top choices. They go with Gannon, the former head coach, a guy that actually took the Philadelphia Eagles as the defensive coordinator to one of the best defenses in the league. I think they were first in passing yards, total passing yards allowed, as well as some other key metrics. Now, as soon as he left Philadelphia and went to Arizona, that defense fell off. Then they hired Vic Fangio, brung him in. There's a little bit of misinformation going out of whether or not he's a Fangio guy or not. He actually came up through, he was on the staff for Mike Zimmer in Minnesota. In today's NFL, man, it's hard to kind of, hammer people down as this is exactly what they are. We talked about Joe Barry. He was supposed to run Fangio's scheme. By the last year, we were going middle field close the majority of the time. With Dallas, for instance. You had Dan Quinn, who ended up going over to Washington before he went to Washington. He was in Dallas. Well, he came from a cover 3 buzz type scheme. Pete Carroll, Legion of Boom days, right? He goes to Atlanta, runs it there. He goes to Dallas. They switch to primarily man coverage. So, again, you got to be careful with just labeling people with this is what they run, especially in today's age with the multiple fronts as well. But we're going to talk about all the latest rumors geared around this coaching cycle, right? This coaching carousel, if you will. And something that Rob Demovsky said in an article we're going to hit on right off the bat, and then we'll give you the latest around the league. I'll hit refresh before we end this stream so we can kind of see what's going to shake into place because it's being reported there are more changes coming on the coaching staff for the Green Bay Packers. So before we get into it, if you guys would, do me a big, big favor. Do that YouTube stuff for me. Hit like, hit subscribe, click the bell icon. If you're new here, welcome into PTA. Thank you for making us a part of your morning. We're not experts. We're not insiders. We're not media members. We're fans just like you, ciphering through all this information and talking Packers on a daily basis. So if you're looking for a fan-driven show, make sure you hit like, subscribe, click the bell icon so you know when we do go live in the future. I see all the regular suspects in the chat chiming in. Appreciate y'all jumping in here and talking ball with us this morning. I'll try to keep my eye on the chat. Any supers that come in, I promise I'll get to those at the end of each segment that we do have. We were going to do a little draft talk, but I really think we need to press into this coaching cycle because this is really, really interesting. And I know Jim was in here early, Nick McSwain, Mike Berry, everybody chiming in. Packer Doug, appreciate y'all swinging through and making us part of your morning. Chad Inc. in the house. Mitchell's mommy in here. Thank y'all so much. Let's get into it. Let's waste no time. I'm going to throw this up on the screen, and I'm going to read off to the side a little piece of this article. You guys do me a favor. Go over to Rob Demovsky's Twitter and make sure that you retweet his article and all that stuff. Give it a click. Because we're grabbing information from that and just kind of giving you a little blurb. I'm not going to read the entire article for obvious reasons, but just want to kind of give you what I feel like is one of the most important aspects of it. So let's just jump right into it, okay? It kind of got – the news kind of got broke yesterday. There were people that were a little – I don't know if upset's the right word. They didn't understand why we didn't wait to interview Jim Leonhard. It sounds like Jonathan Gannon was probably the Packers' top choice for their defensive coordinator spot. Now, they wanted to interview Jim Leonhard. Obviously, Jim Leonhard may have come in like Jeff Hafley, knocked their socks off with an interview, and then look up and go, okay, well, he's actually the guy. He has now surpassed Gannon, right? That could have happened. However, I think it's worth mentioning that there was other interest in our boy Jonathan Gannon. So what Rob Demovsky wrote was a source also said Gannon was drawing interest from both John Harbaugh for their respective defensive coordinator openings with the Chargers and the Giants. And if the Packers had waited any longer, they might have lost out on Gannon. So imagine, put yourself in the coaching staff shoes, put yourself in Ed Policy's shoes, Matt LaFleur's shoes, hell, even Brian Gutekunst's shoes, and you're bouncing ideas off each other, which we know the structure stayed in place there to continue to remove the silos. Some of you guys got that. Some of you didn't. That's all right. But so you're sitting there going, okay, yeah, Gannon's our top choice right now. We want to talk to Leonard. We want to talk to this guy and that guy. And then you hear your top choice is now going to be highly recruited, if you will, by the Chargers and the Giants. You got to make a decision. You got to crap or get off the pot. We talked about it yesterday. However, hiring Gannon now prevents the Packers from interviewing Denver Broncos assistant head coach, defensive passing game coordinator Jim Leonard for the job. Now, this is where it gets interesting. Rob Demovsky went on to say, while there was mutual interest between LaFleur and Leonard, the Wisconsin native from former Badgers player and coach, the Packers could not interview him because the Broncos are playing on Sunday in the AFC Championship game. The only time during which the Packers could have interviewed Leonard previously was during the opening week of the playoffs when the top-seeded Broncos had the bye. That's when the Dallas Cowboys interviewed him for their defense coordinator position. But at that time, Hafley had not left the Packers. So these people are saying, man, LaFleur drug his feet, he drug his feet. Hafley was still on your staff. So what are you going to go interview a guy and tell Hafley, okay, no, you don't have the job. And there may be rules in place that you can't do that when you've got a sitting, coach at that specific spot. I don't know. Right. So again, it wasn't as cut and dry as, they should have already interviewed him. So that explains why they hadn't interviewed him up to that point, obviously. So before hiring Gannon, among the known candidates LaFleur interviewed were obviously Christian Parker. We talked about that. Durante Jones, Al Harris, those others there that they were interested in. It sounds like Jonathan Gannon was the top choice. All right. So Gannon, 43, spent 2 seasons as the Eagles defense coordinator. We talked about a little bit of that, right? Like Hafley, Gannon's previous experience was coaching defensive backs. So they obviously want someone who sees the defense, operates the defense as from a coordinator spot from the backside, right? From the secondary up. Obviously, it's a passing league still, even though teams are continuing to press into 12, 21 personnel. Now, this is where it gets really interesting. Okay, this is the whole reason I want to talk about this. A source said, and again, this is Rob Demovsky from ESPN, who said a source said that LaFleur was still, quote, working through an additional change to his coaching staff for 2026. LaFleur signed a multi-year contract, blah, blah, blah. So what is that additional change? Are they going to get like crazy and really, really shuffle up the defensive side of the ball? Is that going to happen? Is it on offense? And that's where I put this information together right here, this working through quote. What is it they're looking to change? Are they looking to change OC? Now, we've been pretty vocal on this show. In a perfect world, what I would love to see happen, and again, there is no smoke to the Mike McDaniel fire. I want to be very clear. I'm not sitting here trying to spread a rumor and say, hey, I think Mike McDaniel is going to be the OC. But my perfect scenario, because Mike McDaniel was actually verbally, I think, agreed to take the Chargers OC job. Now, obviously, he can change his mind if he wants to, if they haven't signed a contract. But perfect scenario, if I were calling the shots, what I would do is tell Stenavich, listen, we're going to put you back in the O-line room, all right? You can have co-coordinators too. Keep that in mind, guys, right? Like there's a number of different things you can do to, finagle the system if Mike McDaniels wanted to be the OC in Green Bay. And again, we have no reason to think he wants to be other than him and Matt LaFleur are real close. So if it were me, I would demote, right? Or just tell Steno, all right, look, we're going to fire Coach Buckus. I want you in the offensive line room. Hire Mike McDaniel to be your OC and you're off and running. Could that be what's in the works? We have no reason to believe that right now. I'm just telling you from a fan's perspective, which is what I am. That's what I would like to see. Okay. The other thing too is, what if Jim Leonard wants to be a part of the staff? What if he wants to be the passing game coordinator for Green Bay, right? Because they said there was mutual interest there. What if he wanted to get closer to home? Now, the Broncos would have to allow that. Would they? I doubt it. He's their assistant head coach. But that's something else in the back of my mind, just kind of going, what if that's what they're referring to, right? What if it's special teams? Well, Rob Demovsky actually just said on ESPN Wisconsin just a second ago that he said that fans are not going to like this, but Rich Bisaccia is really, really liked all throughout the building, players, coaches, the whole staff, right? So he's probably not going anywhere. I feel comfortable saying it's probably not going to be Rich Bisaccia leaving the team, although who knows? Maybe they hire another special teams coordinator. Rich Bisaccia just stays on as assistant head coach. That could be the case as well. We're just kind of going through all the different options, all the different things that might be falling into place here. So what I did was I did a key search on Adam Stenavich here, okay? And again, if any of this information is wrong, you guys let me know in the chat. We'll correct it. You guys correct it for me in the chat. That's what we do here on this show. We kind of cross-check everybody, right? The latest news regarding Adam Stenavich is that he's currently a top candidate for the Tennessee Titans offensive coordinator position as of today, Monday, January 26th. He's scheduled for a formal interview with the Titans head coach, Robert Saleh. So that's a lateral move, guys, right? He's already the OC in Green Bay. It feels like Matt LaFleur is giving him an opportunity to go somewhere else and get a job before potentially firing him or demoting him. Again, strictly speculation on my part, but is that the move that we're anticipating? And if that happens, then who's going to be the new OC, right? And do you promote from within? That might be the case as well, right? So it talks about the Saleh connection. Obviously, Saleh served as a special coaching advisor for the Packers last season before he joined the 49ers staff. The play calling hurdle, while Stenavich has been the Packers OC for 4 seasons, Matt LaFleur remains a play caller. Moving to Tennessee would represent a major career advancement, putting him in charge of developing 2025 number 1 overall pick, Cam Ward. So that would be, I guess, technically a promotion because he would now be a play caller as opposed to here. We've seen that shuffle in the past. We've seen Matt LaFleur leave the LA Rams, go to the Tennessee Titans because he wanted to be a play caller in Tennessee. And obviously Sean McVay was calling the plays with the LA Rams. So other candidates, Stenavich is competing with Cliff Kingsbury and Thad Lewis for the Titans job. He also drew interest from the Bears head coach, from the Bears head coach, Texans and Seahawks over the last 2 cycles. Okay, I got you in a head coaching search, showing he is highly respected name in league circles. So now listen, let's put ourselves in Tennessee shoes for a minute. Would I hire Adam Stenavich over Cliff Kingsbury? Absolutely not. I mean, it's just me. We haven't seen him call plays. It's kind of an unknown, right? It's one of the downsides to potentially hiring Jim Leonhard as your defensive coordinator, right? If he now all of a sudden calls plays and he wasn't calling plays in Denver, yes, everything is showing he's on an upward trajectory, he being Jim Leonhard. But how effective a play caller will he be? You don't really know until you see that. You've seen that with Jonathan Gannon in Philly, right, where you have one of the best defenses in the league. So impact on the Packers. Now, this is what it talks about potential internal replacements. If Stenavich leaves, it would mark a total overhaul of the Packers offense coordinator spots for 2026. The team has already replaced, obviously, Jeff Hafley with Jonathan Gannon. Potential internal replacements. So let's think in-house. What if Matt LaFleur just promotes from within? Jason Vrabel, he's the current passing game coordinator and the most natural internal choice. Sean Mannion, who's your current quarterbacks coach, could potentially be your OC, your play caller. I doubt he would jump Vrabel. I believe it would be Vrabel first and foremost. But don't forget about Nathaniel Hackett. Nathaniel Hackett, currently a defensive analyst for the Packers, but has a long history as Matt LaFleur's OC. You guys know it's easy to look at what Nathaniel Hackett did in Denver as a head coach. It's easy to see what he did with that horrible roster with the New York Jets, other than Aaron Rodgers, right? They fell flat on their face, don't get me wrong. But when he was in Green Bay with Matt LaFleur, boy, oh boy, y'all remember the gold zone? Y'all remember the red zone efficiency on offense? He created the gold zone. We could use a little bit of that, right? So is he my top choice? No, my top choice would be Mike McDaniel in a perfect world. It's just weird that the Packers have shown no interest in Mike McDaniel at all for anything at all, and him and Matt are so close. I wonder if they've talked behind the scenes, kept it to themselves, and maybe, bang, something could happen. Probably wishful thinking. But, again, just something to keep our eye on. Now, let's see the other trickle-down effect across the rest of the league in terms of offense and defensive staff changes for the Packers, potentially. Diana Rossini says Miami Dolphins defensive coordinator Anthony Weaver will meet in person with the Arizona Cardinals about their head coaching vacancy per source. Weaver, who received second interviews with the Steelers and the Ravens, gets another interview with Arizona. So, obviously, the other 2 positions have been filled. He might be one of the leading candidates for the head coaching job in Arizona. If you're going, Clayton, what the hell's that got to do with us? Jeff Hafley's a new head coach. His plan is to keep Anthony Weaver on as defensive coordinator. If he gets a head coaching job somewhere now, guess what? Now Hafley's probably going to come in and poach some of our defensive assistants, right? And it's something that Rob talked about earlier today. So just keep your eye on the Dolphins, Anthony Weaver, DC Anthony Weaver potentially taking a head coaching job with the Arizona Cardinals. Adam Schefter tweeted out, a busy day ahead for Broncos pass game coordinator and quarterbacks coach Davis Webb. He will, in fact, interview for the head coaching jobs with the Raiders and the Bills per source. It is his second interview with the Raiders and his first with the Bills. Now, why am I talking about the Broncos pass game coordinator potentially being a head coach for the Bills or OC or whatever? Because you're starting to see the Denver coaches' names trickle out now, right? Why haven't we heard Jim Leonhard yet? I'm going to hit refresh real quick on my NFL news feed here and just make sure nothing is popped since we went live. Doesn't look like anything's changed, okay? So Yeah, so nothing's changed. So why isn't Jim Leonhard being mentioned, guys? Where's his interviews at? He interviewed with Dallas. They already filled that role, right? Obviously, the Jets and the Giants were a big landing spot for him potentially. I don't even know if those have been filled yet as well. Why isn't his name being mentioned? And again, it was highly reported that Matt LaFleur and Jim Leonhard, there was mutual interest there. Is there something cooking behind the scenes there? I don't know. Probably not. Probably not. But we're just trying to. What I need, you guys. I can't remember what TV show it was, but I can't remember what it was. But you guys remember the meme, the GIF, where the guy's got the conspiracy theory board and he's pointing at. Somebody help me out in the chat. I know what y'all are talking about. And he's laying a. That I feel like we need a board back here with all these different names, right? And okay, who could potentially go where? I don't know about you guys, but this is an exciting time. I was planning on talking draft today, but this is really, really interesting to see. There it is. Thank you, Nick. I knew somebody would have it. Always sunny in Philadelphia. So there's just always something happen with the coaching carousel that I think it just makes for great conversation and really it gives us a better understanding that in the year 2026, how things are constantly changing and evolving, we can remember what happened last year. Cheo got it too. Thank you, Cheo. Appreciate you, buddy. Paige and Dr. Crutch as well. So, again, just keep your eye on some of these other moves. Diana Rossini tweeted out, the Philadelphia Eagles continue to search for their next offensive coordinator. They're set to speak with Houston Texans quarterback coach Gerard Johnson. Johnson spent one season in 2020 with Nick Sirianni on Indy's offensive staff. Why am I mentioning that? Well, now you're seeing Houston coaches get interviews. Why have we still not heard from Jim Leonhard? It's kind of, am I the only one that thinks that's kind of weird? No, it wasn't Family Guy, J. Cole. Am I the only one that thinks that's a little strange? You know what I'm saying? That I figured Jim Leonhard would be one of the top. All right, bang, here comes the second interview. Maybe it's coming today. Who knows, right? Let's see what surprised O.J. Simpson face always cracks me up. Says, what if Leonhard comes in as a defensive coaching assistant or our pass game coordinator? See, that would be a lateral move, right? And first of all, Denver can block it. Not that they would. Maybe they'd let it go, right? Now, you got to steer it towards, okay, Denver has to allow it. Now, why would Jim Leonhard do that? Why would he just make a lateral move? Why wouldn't he just stay put in Denver? Well, his family's back home in Madison. He can come back to Wisconsin, right, and have pretty much the same position that he had in Denver if Matt LaFleur will allow it, right? So it's really interesting. It's really, really interesting. And also, as I think it's Chris N says here, maybe this is why we're not hearing Jim Leonhard's voice anymore as well. He says Jim Leonhard's teed up to slide into the Broncos DC spot, right? Because if Vance Joseph gets a head coaching job, but again, I'm not hearing much about Vance Joseph this morning. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, that's a great point, Chris. And that's probably what's going on is I'd say Jim Leonhard is telling people, and maybe he told Matt LaFleur that as well, that, hey, look, if Vance gets a job, I've already been told I'm going to be promoted to defensive coordinator here, and I'm going to stay here. That would even push Matt a little bit further to go, okay, Vance is probably going to get a job. Let me go ahead and sign Jonathan Gannon before the Giants and whoever else tries to swoop him up, right? So that makes a lot of sense to me as well. So great point there, Chris. Appreciate you, buddy. Now, I took a poll question out yesterday. I wanted to see how the fan base felt about Jonathan Gannon being hired. Once again, the mentions, the replies on X would make you think that 90% of the fan base hates this hire, right? And this is why we always do the poll questions. We want to really test the pulse. Forget my bias. Forget anybody's bias here in the chat. Let's poll the entire fan base, whoever wants to vote on X, and we got 697 votes. I feel comfortable. That's a pretty good sample size, right? Packer fans, how do you feel about the Jonathan Gannon hire? Love it. It's okay. Could have done better, or hate it. Looking at the replies, you would expect, over 50% to say they hate it, right? It's actually leading the way 49.6%. It's okay. All right. Second is could have done better at 21.8%. So it's like, don't hate it, but could have done better, right? Then it's love it at 17.9%. Last place is hate it. So again, looks like almost half of the fan base is on board with it's okay. What you got to do here is take the two positives and compare them to the two negatives, right? Love it and it's okay makes up for, what is that, 66%? That's just above 65%, right? 66% of the fan base that voted here are saying they're okay with it. Essentially, they love it or they're okay with it. And you got 32%. Only 32% of the fan base actually don't like it. So again, the very loud, very trying to be nice here. very quick to tell you you're stupid at how you fan and how you see the team and how you see the coaching staff, minority of the fan base, because they're always the ones that come in and tell you why you're an idiot and this is why the Packers suck and blah, 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 blah. So with all that being said, that's how the fan base sat. And I did refresh that right before we went live. And then, of course, I think I mentioned this earlier, but I went ahead and tweeted it out as well. Rob Demovsky just now with Jen Latta on ESPN Wisconsin, quote, "It is possible Steno ends up in Tennessee. And I would be stunned if there aren't a couple of current Green Bay staff members on the Dolphins staff." So he's expecting at least a couple, and that's the words he used, a couple, I'm pretty sure, of Packer staffers that are going to go to the Miami Dolphins, right? Especially if Anthony Weaver gets a head coaching job. Guess what he's going to do? He's going to poach the current Dolphins, coaching staff as well and try to take them. So now there's going to be all kinds of voids left. So obviously he can't take everybody. At some point, it's going to be a lateral move. He being Halfley, of course. But just keep that in mind. That's what he said. And then he was asked, "Is Rich Bisaccia safe?" And Rob Demovsky's quote was, and I think he even said, the fans aren't going to like this, but he said, "It sure looks like it," is what he said. And he said that's when he went on to say that everybody in-house absolutely love Rich Bisaccia. So that's the latest around the coaching carousel and how it applies to the Green Bay Packers currently. I'm curious to know what everybody thinks in the chat. How do y'all feel about all the information we covered? Who would be your top OC choice? Who would that be? If you could, right now, you're taking over right now, you're in charge, who would be your top offensive coordinator choice? What angle would you take? Would you promote Jason Vrabel from within? Would you go outside of the building and try to get somebody else? Would you go try to lure Mike McDaniel to come in and coach with Matt LaFleur? Here's the other thing. Is Mike McDaniel going to be willing to not call plays? Because we know Matt LaFleur. I mean, listen, that's Matt LaFleur's strength. When you look at a head coach like Mike Vrabel yesterday, excellent job being involved in the game, calling timeouts when you need to. You could tell he's a Bill Belichick disciple, right? Like that's his strength, right? I don't even know if he calls plays. I don't think he does on defense, but he's just kind of a global head coach, right? And then you got head coaches like Sean McVay that call the plays, right? And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think Mike McDonald, I think that's his name, not Mike McDonald. Yeah. I get them mixed up between Mike McDaniel and McDonald. Coach McDonald with the Seahawks, I think he calls plays on defense, right? Matt LaFleur's strength is calling plays. I mean, you had the 5th best passing offense in terms of yards per pass attempt last year, even with all the injuries. No Tucker Kraft, no starting center, without Jaden Reed from week 2 to most of the season. Didn't get Christian Watson back till November, right? You had all this thing. Josh Jacobs' knee was blimped up the last 6 weeks of the season, and still Matt LaFleur figured out a way to have the passing offense 5th best in the league. So let us know in the comments, what do you think about this coaching cycle here? Who would you hire? Who would you bring in? And let us know in the comments if you're watching this back later. Make sure you hit like, subscribe, click the bell icon so you're notified when we do go live in the future. All right, let's shift gears real quick, and I want to talk a little offensive line prospects. All right, y'all want to talk a little draft with me? And we're not doing a mock draft, but I promise you it's right around the corner. We're almost to the point where we're going to start firing off live mock drafts. But when it comes to fixing the offensive line, and we've kind of already talked about this, right? We've talked about, how would we approach this when it comes to straightening out this offensive line. And I put this together over in Patreon. You guys can check it at patreon.com/Packer Fan Total Access. And by the way, shout out to everybody who's joined. We have a bunch of people that's joined recently. It's awesome to have y'all part of our community. We greatly, greatly appreciate it. Actually, I want to give a special shout out to one in particular because I listen to him all the time, call into Packernet After Dark. Chris from Alabama. Man, so glad you joined the Patreon, bub. It's awesome listening to your calls. You're one of my favorite callers. I know the guys agree. Emilio, Tim, Jacob, we all agree. So congratulations jumping into the Patreon group and welcome aboard, brother. And keep those calls coming on Packernet After Dark for sure. All right. Offensive line prospects. I'm not saying you got to go build through the draft with offensive line to fix the problems. I've been very vocal. We've already talked about the free agents. You guys can watch that video from yesterday. The top free agents, offensive linemen that we think that the Packers should go after. One in particular, Tyler Linderbaum. If somehow, some way, Baltimore is stupid enough to let him hit the market and the Packers have a shot to go get him, man. go get him. Go get him and move on from Elton Jenkins, free up $20 million. The fair market value for Tyler Linderbaum showing $17 million. It may be a little higher. It may be a little less. I imagine, if anything, it'd be a little higher. Although, the first and second year cap hits, the way that we structure contracts, typically year one isn't going to be that bad. Year two, you'll probably have to move some money around and adjust a little bit. But I think it'd be well worth it to go get Tyler Linderbaum. However, you still got to build depth, right? So we're going to just lay out the top offensive line prospects. I'm going to show you tackles and interior offensive line and where they currently rank in terms of positionally on our PTA big board, which you guys have access to as well over on patreon.com/PackerFan Total Access. And Mike Z, I see the super there, man. Appreciate you. I'm going to hit it right at the end. Okay. Thank you so much, bud. So here are the top prospects according to the consensus big board. All right. You got Francis Mwaga, if I'm saying that right, offensive tackle out of Miami. He's currently number 6 on the big board. You will not have a shot at him, right? You got Spencer Fano, offensive tackle out of Utah, number 7, right behind him. So those are your 2 tackles as it sits right now. Caden Proctor out of Alabama, offensive tackle as well. Caleb Lomu, offensive tackle out of Utah. You got Monroe Freeling out of Georgia in the 34 spot. So you got 6, 7, 19, 23, 34. Once you get to 34, maybe one of these guys fall in your lap because you just got a second-round pick, right? Obviously, we don't have a first-round pick. You got Jennings Dunker, okay, offensive tackle out of Iowa at 36. You got Caleb Tiernan, number 53 out of Northwestern. Blake Miller, number 57 out of Clemson. Isaiah World, number 64 out of Oregon. Then you got Max Einacher, if I'm saying that right, out of Arizona State at 78. You got Brian Parker II. These are one of my favorites right here. This one is Brian Parker II. I did a profile on him, okay, and we'll probably highlight that here in the upcoming episodes. We're going to show you. I'm going to do quick little 7-minute clips of here's a quick prospect profile, so you guys will have quick little videos you can hit. All right, here's everything you need to know about this player going into the draft process. Brian Parker out of Duke really grabbed my attention. Also, you drafted Jacob Monk. So there's a little bit of a pipeline there that we got out of Duke as well. So they were obviously teammates unless Brian Parker had transferred over recently, and that could have been the case. Then you got Austin Barber rounding out there in the top 100, number 99 out of Florida. Now, when you look at our big board, our PTA big board, you can kind of see how these guys rank. The number on the right, low number wins, okay? So we got Fano first, Mwago, if I'm saying it right. Number 2, you got Caden Proctor, number 3. You can kind of see how they line up. Here's what you want to do with the PTA big board, guys. Here's how I try to find really, really good value in these prospects. This number right here in this column, that's your consensus big board at the end of the college football season. That's where they rank, okay? So, like, Fano is 17th. Well, the grade we got on him is 9.7. So if this number on the right is lower than the one at the consensus big board, probably a good value pick because we take into consideration the PFF big board, the PFF grades. We'll also have Daniel Jeremiah's top 50 starting Tuesday, I believe. We'll have that information tomorrow. So we'll add that in and they'll shuffle them around as well. So you're looking for someone with a low number on the right and a high number on the left there, right? And that'll kind of show you good value. Look what we got here. Brian Parker II, number 80 on the consensus big board when we took the information down, 57.8 on our board. Good value pick. That's why Parker's kind of on my radar. Like, that might be a potential draft pick in the second round if you decide to go offensive line, if the board aligns with it. Now, let me show you kind of a bad pick. And again, it doesn't mean these are going to be bad players. This is just how the early PTA board is shaken out. What you'll see is Caleb Lomu, right? 25th on the big board, on the consensus big board, 65.3 for us. Might want to do a little extra research on it, right? Another solid pick would be Austin Barber, 76 as opposed to 103. That's solid. You got Cage Casey, another one out of Boise State. We put the profile up on our website, 81 compared to a 104. So you can kind of see how the board works. Let's go to interior offensive line real quick. All right. And listen, I'm going to butcher these names. You guys know it. I think this guy's name is Lone, or it's Lone, interior offensive lineman out of Penn State. He's number 20. You got Emmanuel Pregnon, interior offensive lineman out of Oregon at 32. Connor Liu, center out of Auburn, although I think he tore his ACL back in October. So do some extra research on him. We'll make sure that we have him lit up red on our board. If for some reason we're worried about him not being ready week 1, I think that's a real concern. So even though he's 54, he was considered one of, if not the top centers in the draft. And we'll highlight the centers specifically in just a second. He's out of Auburn there, Connor Liu. Then you got Chase Bisontis, Interior offensive lineman out of Texas A&M at number 60. Parker Brailsford out of Alabama at 94. Jake Slaughter, 95 out of Florida, one of my favorite centers in the draft. Logan Jones out of Iowa might be the fan favorite here. Everybody loves Logan Jones that I've talked to that are Packer fans. I know we got some strong Iowa fan ties there as well. He's a center. He's sitting at 107 according to the big board. And then Keelan Rutledge there at 118. Pat Coogan out of Indiana at 140. Very interesting as well. I'll explain why. Now you'll notice here with the interior offensive line on our PTA big board, the guys lit up in blue. It's specifying tier 2 importance. That's the center. Okay. Safeties, stack backers will be lit up in blue. Centers will be lit up in blue. Tier 1, your edge, your tackles, your quarterbacks. Your three, you're not necessarily your three techs, but your defensive tackles. So we can dig in and do a little more research. They will be lit up green, tier 1 of importance. Okay. So they kind of pop, especially once we create the horizontal big board for everybody in our Patreon group as well. So the way these offensive linemen line up, let's specifically focus on center. So when you start with Jake Slaughter, number 93 on the consensus big board, when we put the first information in the board, 38.8 is the actual grade that we have on him. That looks like a high value pick. Now, Connor Lew is kind of stable. 54 consensus big board, 55.5 for us. However, the injuries, got to focus on that, right? That's going to probably drop his draft stock down. We will not lower them on our board. We don't do that. We don't penalize for personal issues. We don't penalize for injuries. We simply mark them red so you know, alarm going off. Do a little more research on him. It's either an injury or a disciplinary action, and then you can make your own determination, you being the fan, on whether or not you would be willing to take a swing on them at that spot, right? Logan Jones, check this one out. This is why I mentioned Logan Jones out of Iowa. Not just because Packer fans love him, but 107 on the big board, 72 with the grade. Looks like a really, really good value pick right there. Okay. And then next is Pat Coogan out of Indiana, 140 on the big board, 84.8 for us. Those are your top centers, in my opinion, in the draft. So again, I like Jake Slaughter over Connor Lew. Forget the injury. If both players were healthy, I would like Jake Slaughter over Connor Lew. Then it would be Connor Lew, Logan Jones, Pat Coogan. But when you start to look at the consensus big board, and let's say that the draft fell into place exactly how the consensus big board says, then you could probably hold off on until your third or fourth round pick to try to get one of those guys. But if they're all gone, you're going to miss out on a center, right? Again, if you can get Tyler Linderbaum, that's the home run pick. But let's say Tyler Linderbaum ends up signing back with Baltimore, or he, whatever reason, goes somewhere else in free agency, probably going to be wanting to look at one of these 4 centers right here. Jake Slaughter would be my pick, but again, it's extremely, extremely early. Again, our grade is saying he's worthy of the 38th pick, right? But the consensus big board is saying 93. So if he falls in the second round to you, if you're picking him at whatever our pick is, I don't know if it's in the 50s or whatever it would be, guy. Somebody help me out. What's our second round pick overall? I'll try to keep an eye on the chat so I can mention it here on the pod as well. Wherever you're picking in the 50s, if you get somebody with a 38.8 grade, that's great value at where you're selecting right there. Does that make sense? 52. Thank you, Jay. Appreciate you, buddy. So we're picking at 52, and it looks like most hated Minnesotan got that as well. Thank you, and Jay Cole, for pointing that out. So at 52, if you can get Jake Slaughter, that's a slam dunk home run pick. Now, does that mean he's going to be a great football player? Absolutely not. But what we're doing is trying to go through all the information we got. By the time we get in Daniel Jeremiah's information, by the time we get in Greg Cosell's information, by the time we get his RAS and his combine grade and all that, he may drop. He may raise as well. He may rise on the list as well. So just something to kind of keep an eye on there. So Nick is saying 67. What's 67, Nick? Trying to think, would that be the third? Do we have a third round pick in 67? At the 67 mark, I'm guessing. Is it 52 and 67? Anyway, I love that surprised OJ faces in here, dude. It always cracks me up. Anybody who knows me, I'm big into the OJ Simpson conspiracies behind the scenes, watching all the documentaries, seeing some of the evidence that didn't get looked at and this and that. Really, really interesting. If you guys haven't dug into that, man, it's amazing that story is still fascinating people today, even though the juice is gone. Ignore me, says Nick McSwain. Okay, sorry, buddy. So again, that's a quick look at the prospects on offensive line. Want to kind of give you guys a quick little glance at it, and you can see how our board is going to shake out. We'll have more information going in very, very, very soon. Surprised OJ Simpson face says LMAO. Me too. Hence the profile name, bro. There you go. You couldn't have picked a better picture either, man. Absolutely hilarious. So I'm curious to know what you guys think about these prospects. Now, here's the thing. What have we said all along? All along, we've said you can't go in with the youngest roster. I mean, you can, but you can't go in with the youngest roster expecting a different result, right? I mean, it is what it is. I'm curious to know what you guys think in the comments. Let me know, how do you feel about the prospects we're showing here? If you go out, you ignore free agency, and you just draft 2 or 3 offensive linemen, guess what? Your offensive line just got even more inexperience, especially if you decide to move on from Elton Jenkins and or Aaron Banks on O-line. I don't think that's the right way to go. I would be very aggressive with Tyler Linderbaum or maybe one of the other free agents, get somebody else in there at a veteran presence. If you decide to keep Aaron Banks and you want to move some money around, okay, cool. Let Elton Jenkins test free agency, bring him in, try to match the offer. If he goes out to free agency and he only gets $10 million per, maybe match that offer with not as much guaranteed money tied up down the road. I would love to have Elton Jenkins back on the roster at $10 million cap hit. 24.8 can't happen, man. Just can't happen, especially with one phone call, you can free up $20 million. I'd let him test the market. And if somebody overpays him, then, hey, go get your money, E, you know. But you want to keep as many veterans as you can because, again, man, we got to get some veteran presence on this roster. Just got to do it. So let me know if you're watching this back later. How do you feel about the prospects? What route would you go? Would you go into free agency, or would you kind of stick to the draft that we draft and development that we've done in the past, other than Aaron Banks, who seemed to be a swing and a miss of free agency last year? Let us know in the comments. Make sure you hit like, subscribe, click the bell icon so you know every time we go live in the future. Mike Z with the super chat. Appreciate you, buddy. He said he is a sound choice, in my opinion, multiple scheme guy with experience, and I hope we don't make decisions based on, quote, desperation and more on sound leadership and capabilities. At OC, I would stay internal. Got it, buddy. Got it. So obviously he's talking about Jonathan Gannon hire and then saying he would hire from within. And to me, it feels like it would be Vrabel, right? That's the one that I think we should probably go with if you stay in-house, if you stay internal with the promotion. I'd love to see Mike McDaniel. I know I'm in the minority here. I'm positive I'm in the minority, but Nathaniel Hackett, OC, I wouldn't hate that. And now listen, you give it a year, and if it doesn't pop like it did the last time he was here with LaFleur, then you go a different route, right? But we got to get some O-line help, man, both coaching and obviously with fresh blood in here. So appreciate you, Mike. You're always too kind, buddy. H.E. Soder with the super chat. Good to see you, Soder. He says, after watching the Seahawks, I get the feeling the Packers are going to need to thread the personnel needle to push to the top of the NFC. Seattle looking good, man. And I seen the rumblings. I see the grumblings on X of people going, damn it, we had John Schneider in. It's pretty wild. Think about this, guys. John Schneider, the GM for the Seahawks, and Elliott Wolf, the GM for the New England Patriots, who they just flipped that roster like that. Now, granted, they had $100 million to spend, and they spent it, but they go get Vrabel. They hit on their quarterback, Drake May. Aren't y'all glad that the Bears took Caleb Williams over Drake May? Could you imagine if Drake May was the quarterback? And again, I know he struggled in the playoffs here, but on the season, boy, he was so much better than Caleb Williams. So I'm just so glad that they didn't end up with Drake May in Chicago as opposed to Caleb. And honestly, I don't know if Caleb would make it on Mike Vrabel's team. Mike Vrabel he's just one of those hard-nosed dudes. This whole, hey, look at me, I want to paint my nails, and I'm flashy, and I'm going to take a picture in a dress, and I'm going to do this and that. And it has nothing to do with sexuality or anybody's preference. It has everything to do with, why are you bringing all this attention to us? Why are you trying to be in a line? Like, no, we don't need that, right? I feel like that's cut more from Vrabel's cloth there. So, but yeah, imagine, though, here's the question. I'm just going to ask it, and I don't know how you guys feel. Y'all get ready, okay? I need just the name of who you would choose of these three people, of these three GMs, okay? Get ready, okay? Be ready to top it in as fast as possible. Since Soder brought it up, and I think it's a great point that you make here, Soder. Which would you rather have hindsight be in 2020? Are you still good with Brian Gutekunst? So you could say Goody, John Schneider, or Elliott Wolf. Who would be your pick as GM if you could rewind time, right? And again, Ted was still in charge when John Schneider was when he left for Seattle. But if you could put yourself in a position to go, okay, we're going to name him the successor moving forward, right? And again, we're kind of splitting hairs here. And we're going in the redneck time machine to do this, to have this conversation. But would you rather, looking back now, man, Schneider was the pick, Schneider was the guy, or do you think it's Elliott Wolf? Or are you happy with Goody? You think Goody was the right guy? Let's see. We got some answers coming in. Again, one-word answers, please, guys. Donovan Schilling says Schneider. All right. Surprised OJ Simpson face says Schneider. Easily. Got it. Packer Doug says, I think I'd still go with Goody. So he likes Goody. Got it. J. Cole says Schneider. H.E. Solder says Schneider. So there you go. It looks like it's kind of unanimous, right? Schneider. And I imagine there'd be a few Goodies. There's probably a few Elliott Wolfs as well. But Schneider's the one that kind of got away. You know, it is what it is. But again, at the time, who knows? I'm trying to think of when Schneider got the job in Seattle and how bad was Ted's health at the time. We know he started to decline fairly fast, although he hung on to that spot as long as he could. And I think it honestly kept him alive as long as it did because he loved football and loved operating as a general manager. It's pretty much common knowledge that Goody was helping run stuff behind the scenes. So that's why I say, what if they'd have chose early on that, hey, when Ted's ready to go, Schneider, you're the successor, right? Obviously, they didn't feel comfortable enough at the time, and who knows? Maybe Schneider wasn't well equipped as he is now to be given that role, right? So, Mike Z with the super chat, thank you, Mike. Well, let me get these in real quick, Mike. I'll come back to it because I did ask a question here. Coach Lynn said Elliott Wolf, got it. You got to be kidding me, says Schneider. Chael Walker says Goody, so we got 2 for Goody. Got a couple votes in here for Goody. Appreciate it, Chael. Mike Z with the super chat. Hit the like button, fam. Help the channel. It helps the channel. 100 plus in here, 30 likes. They work hard. Go back. Thank you so much, Mike. Appreciate you, buddy. If you guys would take a second, I hate asking you, but if you'll spin those laces for us, just smash that like button. If you're new here, hit sub and click the bell icon as well. We're going to get a few more answers here, and then we'll wrap up. So we already hit those 2. Looks like Lil McCrocodile. Yeah. Lemmy Crocodile Dundee 0001. I'm just going to say Lil Mick, all right, because that's the first several letters there. He says Schneider, or she says Schneider, not sure which one. I apologize. So there's a lot of Schneiders in there, right? Schneider's done a heck of a job up there with Seattle for sure. So let's see here. Move actually right here. Bradley Spears says Goody cannot look back just because of their recent success. I mean, you can say you can't look back, but here we are. Everybody's looking up going, damn, where did Schneider guy come from? My gosh. There's casual fans across the NFL going, where did they get this GM from? Yeah, he was actually in-house in Green Bay a long time ago, but nonetheless there. Now, the Wolf one, as you can see, your fishy thing says Elliott Wolf. That's one that's a lot more recent, right? You actually chose Goody over Elliott Wolf. You can compare those apples to apples. Schneider's a little bit more difficult. Obviously, to do that. So Donovan Schilling says Schneider has been successful since forever. No doubt, man. He jumped in there quick and flipped that thing around. So that's one. It is kind of a stretch. Like I said, we'd have to really fuel up the redneck time machine to go back and try to make sense of that. Right. The Elliott Wolf one though is apples to apples, and I don't know, man. Maybe that's a good poll question for a later show. Which would you rather have, Elliott Wolf or Brian Gutekunst? I think the majority would probably take Elliott Wolf because obviously it's Ron Wolf's son, and he's had a lot of success. You know, those are fun stories when you talk about a second generation Packer, if you will, right, taking over and doing great things. So last one here, Don Schilling said Wolf. So got it. All right, guys, that's it. I'm going to wrap up. We got a little bit of draft talk in. Obviously, if you guys tuned in for the thumbnail, the more coaching changes conversation that we had, they're coming up around the corner. That's at the front of the show. So just rewind back. Okay, if you just tuned in, if you're clicking on this later, just rewind right back to the beginning. We opened up with that, so you can find that. I'll also edit that video out so y'all have quick access to this stuff as well. So we're gonna get off here, take a break. We'll be back in a little bit if the news breaks. If not, we're gonna get back in here and talk some draft. I want to highlight 2 or 3 of these prospects in depth. Jake Slaughter, Connor Lew, Logan Jones. So we'll talk about those scouting reports, and then who knows, man, we might just have a mock draft in the work today. So we'll see. But again, if you're new here, thank you so much for hanging out with us this morning. Hopefully y'all are staying warm, staying safe. We got a ton of ice down here in Tennessee, so I had to get out and do a little bit of throw down some salt at a couple of properties that I manage here locally in Tennessee. So got out there 6 o'clock in the morning. It was cold, let me tell you. So you guys, please stay safe out there. Make sure you hit like, subscribe, click the bell icon so you're notified anytime we go live in the future, like probably here in a couple hours. We'll talk some ball again as well. So y'all have a great day. My name's Clayton. This is PTA. Go Pack Go.
And we gone.
We out.
Bye, guys.